The Carolina Hurricanes are official back as they play the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. They did lose 63, but the main thing we're going to be talking about for this episode is that we do have some contract stuff with Mikko Rantanen, and also this narrative about the Hurricanes flipping him at the deadline really needs to stop.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. Also do some AHL content over at the Calder Times. I'm the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a good show for you on this Monday edition as we get to talk about the supposed offer of $100 million plus to Mikko Rantanen that was given by the Hurricanes over the Four Nations break. Also, when it comes to Mikko Rantanen, this whole narrative of the Hurricanes possibly flipping him really needs to end because the speculation is just getting out of hand. And I do have some thoughts from the 6-3 loss on Saturday because I know we're a couple days past it, but I still have some stuff I want to talk about when it comes to that game. But before we jump into all of that stuff for the Monday episode, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, over the weekend, during some ESPN segments, in between some games, and supposedly what's been put on the internet per Elliot Friedman is that the Carolina Hurricanes have, I guess, reportedly, supposedly, have offered Mikko Rantanen a what Friedman calls a 9-figure deal. Now, when you're looking at a 9-figure deal, you're looking at, over $100 million, just because if you're looking at an 8-year contract at $100 million plus, you're kind of looking into a range of, an AAV that's mainly around, 12 and a half or more per season. Now, if you're looking at $100 million even, that will be an 8-year, $12.5 million deal. Now, what makes it interesting is that Kevin Weeks on ESPN, when he was talking to Ardo Cal, said that he's heard supposedly that you're looking between 13 and $14 million per season. Now, an 8 by 14 million, that would be around $112 million per season. If you're looking at, 8 by 13, that's going to be about $111 million. So there is a possibility that if we're going by the 8 by 14 that I've basically kind of suggested, I could see where this could be a thing where you're hitting 14. Then you're looking at an 8 by $112 million total with that $14 million hit, or $111 million if you're going to the 13 range. But if you're looking at least $100 million for your total contract, that would be a AAV around 12.5, which, it's kind of where the Colorado Avalanche were mainly somewhat looking at before they traded Mikko Rantanen. So, either way, it makes sense of why you're looking at a contract that is going to be, like they say, a 9-figure piece, just because of, if you're looking at the overall total dollar amount, it just makes sense to go there. And will the Hurricanes do it? Obviously they will, but we all know they're going to be aggressive. They want to get the deal done. And apparently it was given over the Four Nations break, but, there's not a definite no. There hasn't been a yes, but, it's, still a lot of things to consider, which, we'll talk about in segment 2 when it comes to the narrative that's been going around with Mikko Rantanen. But overall, it makes sense when you see a deal like that where it's like, the Hurricanes looking at 9 figures. Well, yeah, the thing is with the Hurricanes, they've never paid anyone above $10 million per season. It's just never happened. Sebastian Aho is probably one of the highest guys they've ever paid, but it's when you're looking at someone that you want to give $10 million plus to per season, Mikko Rantanen is one of those guys where you're talking one of the top 10, top 15 guys in the AHL, like one of the top 3, maybe even the best power forward in the game. Everyone knows he's a superstar. With where his resume is at right now, I won't be surprised if he makes the Hockey Hall of Fame at some point. It's just how good he's been, and there's just so much left to the tank of his career. So if you're going to give someone a type of contract where it's going to be you're hitting $100 million plus and you're paying him well over $10 million per season, Mikko Rantanen is that guy. And all you hear about the Carolina Hurricanes is like, oh, well, they need to get a superstar. They need a superstar. And they got their superstar, and this type of contract is one you want to give to a guy like that. So I'm not shocked that you're looking at a price tag that's, like I said, well above $100 million. If you're looking at that 112, if it's a 14, or 111 is a $13 million, or like I said, even 12 and a half at $100 million even, that's still a pretty good contract. So, it's good to see that, even if it's, a supposed or a reported, or maybe it did happen type of rumor, it's good to see that the Hurricanes are actually going to try to get a deal done. And it's even what Kevin Week said, it's, give it some time, and the two sides might, figure it out. Because like I said, with Mikko, he's only been in Carolina for a handful of days. He's only played in 7 games for the team. So it's still, a lot to get used to, but you're seeing how the Hurricanes, what Eric Tulsky's been saying, is that they want to keep him in Carolina. So I think it's a deal that's worth it. If you want to give someone that type of contract, Mikko is that guy. And I think I'm still at the belief that while it's not a 0 that maybe it might not work, I think it's less than 1%. I feel pretty confident the Hurricanes are going to get this done, because you look at the cap situation for this upcoming offseason. I mean, you've got Anderson's contract coming off the books, along with Orlov, Brent Burns. You have a lot of, you have like Tyson Jost and Jack Roslovic and Eric Robinson. Like, you have a lot of contracts that are coming off the Bucks, and that's not even mentioning too that the cap is going to go up to probably somewhere around $93 million. So if you're looking at a $5 million bump, or even goes up to 94, I mean, they're talking 3 seasons from now where supposedly it's going to be $113 million. A lot of these contracts that the Hurricanes have are going to look really, really good, open up a lot more space to where they can give Mikko Rantanen a contract that's around 12.5 to 14 or $14.5 million per season. Because you got Sebastian Aho that's, making where he's at. You have Seth Jarvis under $8 million. You have Jacob Slavin under 6.5. Even Andrei Svechnikov is under 8. And you look at Jesperi Kotkaniemi's contract, and he's been playing great as the season's been going on. He's making 4.8. Like, that's gonna look like an amazing contract in a couple seasons, where if the cap's at 113, that's gonna take about 4.2% of the cap space. So unlike last year with Gensel, where it's kind of like you're having a kind of penny pinch to get to the $88 million if you sign him to his contract, you don't really have to do that with Mikko Rantanen, because with the cap going up and it's still going up, now it's like, okay, we can give him the money now. It might be a little tight for the first season, depending on where he lands, and then you got to sign all the other contracts, the guys to fill out the roster. But you still put yourself in a good spot to where you can make it work with a contract like Mikko Rantanen's, and having to bring other guys in, but that still fits in with the cap that's going up to $94 million. So if you're Carolina, yeah, you get the job done. You go make this deal. And that's why I think, like, I'm not going to balk at, or be like, oh my gosh, the Hurricanes gave him how much? It's like, no, it's worth it. And it makes sense to do so, because he's definitely worth that 9-figure, 9-digit deal, to where, yeah, you want this guy around for a very long time, especially on 8 years. And it's very doable. And I think, like I said, with the Hurricanes cap situation of a lot of contracts coming off the Bucks, and with the cap going up, it just makes sense for them to make the moves. I mean, you look at the defense where you got Burns and Orlov contract comes off the Bucks. Now you're opening for what? Nikishin coming up, coming over next season. You got Scott Morrow coming up, because he's played very well with the Hurricanes in this limited amount of time. It's just, and how he's playing in Chicago, it just makes sense for him to come up. So you're going to have like 2 guys on pretty good, one's going to be in an ELC. It depends on what they're going to look at for, Nikishin. Like, his contract's going to look pretty good too. So all things considered, you're going to be paying 2 of your defensemen next season and beyond pretty reasonable contracts, where you can still open maybe an Eric Robinson extension to where it could be 3 or 4 years at like maybe 2.5, maybe 3 at the most, if that. If you want to bring Jack Roslovic back, you can, but at least if you bring Robinson back on the forward core, and then kind of look around to fill in other spots, I mean, it just makes sense to give Mikko this contract. So all in all, if it's legit where it's, you're looking at over, $100 million, if it is that $13 to $14 million range for 8 years, really can't be upset about that. And like you said, hopefully you get it done. I know there's time to still take for that, which is fine. But at least you know that the Hurricanes are very, very serious, and it definitely beats this narrative how they might want to flip them at the deadline. So you know what? Stick around as we will go over those ridiculous narratives about Mikko Rantanen here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crackin is a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, we kind of talked about the end of segment 1, how you see the Hurricanes are being very aggressive and they want to get this offer done. And if it's a contract that's looking at between $13 and $42 million per season, hey, that's great. You love to see it. So it's an 8x111 or an 8x112 total. So that's perfect. And that kind of puts I'm hoping that kind of puts to bed this ridiculous narrative that we've been seeing all over Twitter, especially coming from, not so prominent to very prominent reporters. And I've been saying it all weekend. This is a narrative that needs to die. And even Ryan Henkel has said it too. And even Corey Levy-Letts wrote about it. It's just, and even Mark Lazarus of The Athletic have said it too. It's that this has to take time. Like, you're talking about a guy who just got traded out of nowhere. No one knew that he was up for, a trade. He obviously didn't know he was up for trade. Like, he was on the road when he got traded. So it's one of the situations where you have to go from Boston to New York because the Avalanche are supposed to play Boston. The Hurricanes are playing the Islanders. So you have to basically leave one team to go to a different hotel in a different state, essentially. Then you play 4 games on the road. You finally come home. You've maybe spent 10 days in Carolina, if that, played 6 total games, and then you went to go play an international tournament for about the last 10 days. So it's a whirlwind for him, just being able to go through all that. And it's already like, why is he struggling so much in Carolina? Like, does he actually want to stay there? It's like, okay, well, pump the brakes. At that time, he's played 6 games. Now he's only played 7. Yes, he does have 2. He's got 3 points now, but you can see the numbers are pretty much there. Mark Lazarus put out a great article at The Athletic about Mikko Rantanen. It's like, is he bad for the Hurricanes? If he is, then you aren't watching. And that's true, because if you look at his numbers, all of his, goals, his Corsi scores are a lot better. His, goals per 60 chances are better. It's like across the board, he's due for a goal. Yeah, maybe his shooting percentage is the only thing that's really down, because every other metric across the board is up. It's just the puck's not going in, and that's going to come in eventually. And it's just one of those things where I don't understand this narrative where that all we hear every single season is Hurricanes fans. Oh, the Hurricanes don't have a superstar. Oh, the Hurricanes don't have this guy. Oh, they don't have a finisher for the playoffs. Oh, the Hurricanes need a superstar. They don't have superstars on this team. Even though Sebastian Aho, Jacob Slavin, now Seth Jarvis, the way he's been playing for the last couple seasons in the 4 nations. But you always keep hearing, oh, they don't have that guy. They don't have their, Nathan McKinnon. They don't have their they don't have their Connor McDavid or their Sidney Crosby or Austin Matthews. And then, okay, here you go, Carolina Hurricanes. Boom, here's Mikko Rantanen. And they got their superstar. They got that dude, the guy who they're really going to hope that's going to, carry them in the playoffs, because Mikko Rantanen is unreal in the playoffs. So they finally get it done. They finally go get their guy that they need, that everyone says they need a superstar for. And less than 10 games with the team, not even 8 games with the team. Oh, well, the Hurricanes might consider flipping him at the deadline because maybe they can't get a deal done by March 7th and they don't want to lose out on him because they don't want the same thing to happen with, Mikko like they did with Jake Gensel, where Gensel didn't want to sign and they basically had to give away his rights and got nothing back. Okay, so What's the narrative that we need to be running with? Because all we hear is Hurricanes need a superstar. Hurricanes need a superstar. Okay, well, we finally got one, and now they're talking about trading the guy. Like make it make sense of what this narrative needs to be. I'm sorry, you can't expect a guy to be used to one system for a decade in Colorado, then come to Carolina, and then it's like, oh well, he's struggling. It's not it's the system. The system isn't great. Rod Brind'Amour's system doesn't help superstars. The system is fine. He's very close to scoring goals. It's just, what can you do? He's hitting a post or a crossbar, or the goalie's making ridiculous saves. Like, he's still getting used to the team. Like, it took, Mark Recchi in the 2006 Cup season. It took him 8 games before he got his first point, and then he went out to off and running. Like, it's going to take time for these guys. Like, you can't expect to go from a run-and-gun style in Colorado to play a more structured, transitional defense to offense type game like the Hurricanes do. I mean, the system obviously works fine when you have 6 straight playoff appearances, 3 division titles, and 2 Eastern Conference final appearances. Yes, you haven't won the Eastern Conference final since you won the Cup, but still, it's still a system that works, and it's proven to work. It's just you got to find the right pieces to make it work and get hot at the right time. But this narrative of, the Hurricanes might consider trading him, but when all you hear from Eric Tulsky is, we're not going to trade him. We want to extend him. We want to keep him here in Carolina, because all we hear is like the Hurricanes need that guy. So the Hurricanes get that guy, but then you don't. It's like, is it because he's not the superstar you wanted in Carolina, or you just say the Hurricanes need a superstar, and then the minute they get one, it's, oh well, he's struggling too much. That's the system. They need to get him out of Carolina, or Carolina's going to consider trading him. You can't keep saying the Hurricanes need something. The final when we get it, it's not good enough, or it's just not who you think it needs to be. Like I said, pick a lane and pick a narrative of what that's going to be. I don't know where this story came from of the Hurricanes possibly flipping Mikko Rantanen at the deadline. The Hurricanes gave up Martin Necas and Jack Drury, and I know, Necas has been kind of taken off. His numbers, his time on ice has gone up. He's gotten a lot of points in his recent games, but he's gone to a system that works for him. And, that's great for Marty that he's playing very well in Colorado. And, I mean, when you get a guy like Nathan McKinnon on your line, sure, yeah, you're going to get the points. But it's just one of those things where you gave up 2 players and 3 draft picks. 2 went to Colorado, 1 went to Chicago for the Taylor Hall deal. And, they got the Hurricanes got a prospect back, but that's not really what. My whole thing is, like, the Hurricanes gave up a lot of assets to go get Mikko Rantanen. Why would you give up 2 guys and 3 picks of your future to get Mikko Rantanen kind of towards the end of January, a couple weeks left, knowing that you have a 4 nations break that's going to take up over 2 weeks of hockey, and then you get him back for, 3 games at the end of February and that handful before you go to trade deadline on March 7th? That's barely even 12 to 13, maybe 14 games. And the Hurricanes are going to trade him like that. Like, that's just bad. That's bad asset management. Why would you even make this trade for him in the first place if you're just going to dump him in less than 20 games? Just at the trade deadline. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, Eric Tulsky and the Hurricanes, and even Dundon would never have approved this move if there was a possibility or contingency of the Hurricanes flipping him. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to go do that. The asset management is just terrible at that point if you do that. Then I'd be very questioning what the trajectory is or what the idea is from the front office if you go and do that. And I just don't see the Hurricanes making a move like that. Like, they would have got rid of guys that are, been playing pretty well for them this year, especially Martin Necas, to go get a 14-game rental before a trade deadline, then flip the guy. That's why I said this narrative makes no sense. And Ryan Henkel said it perfectly. It's just got it out of hand. Because, like, where did the story came from? I have no idea. I don't know why it's Freeman thinks it's going to happen, or maybe who knows what's going to happen. Then you get Darren Drager saying, while he's struggling in Carolina, maybe if they can't get an extension done in time before March 7th, maybe they'll flip him at the deadline. And it's like, why is it the trade deadline? Like, why are you giving this such a short window between the end of January and March 7th? Like, that's such a small window. Like, the Hurricanes have all the way until July 1st to go make this deal happen. Like, why are you shortening this whole thing by 4 months. That makes no sense to me. July is like less than, like, if you're talking March 1st, that's still 4 months away. Like, why are we talking about a possible, oh, they can't end up by March 7th? They have until July 1st to extend him. Like, I just don't understand this whole like weird narrative of, oh, let's go get this guy, and then it's just get rid of him. We can't re-sign him by March 7th. Let's trade him. So I'm just saying this narrative is ridiculous. I've heard nothing else. I've heard nothing outside of this narrative that's come out of nowhere with less than 8 games with Mikko in Carolina. So I just don't see it going to happen. It makes no sense for the Hurricanes to do that. And I just knowing, from hearing from other people about what the front office wants to do, especially what Eric Tulsky wants, this narrative makes no sense to happen. And I just don't see it happening. So hopefully this narrative just ends soon, because this is going to be such a headache to the writers, for the people who actually write about the Hurricanes and watch them consistently. And I know you guys, the fans too. Everyone's going to be sick of this narrative by March 7th if we keep hearing this every other day about the Hurricanes might flip him. Oh, the Hurricanes can't re-sign him. Well, I'm sorry. Well, the Hurricanes gave him an offer. It's been, a few days. Let's just let this breathe. Let this just happen naturally on its own. Stop pushing a narrative and trying to push a deadline that's not there. July 1st is the start of free agency. Hurricanes have until then to figure it out. So let's just let this play out and see what happens. Like I said, I'm in the belief the Hurricanes will re-sign him. All right, so enough about that. I know it's a long rant, but it's just like it's just getting tired. I know you guys are sick of it too. I'm tired of seeing this narrative. It makes no sense. I just don't see it happening. But so the Hurricanes did play on Saturday against the Maple Leafs. They did lose 6-3, but I do have some thoughts about that. So stick around as I'll give my thoughts on that game here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. And like I said, the Hurricanes came back for their first game on Saturday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they unfortunately lost 6-3. Well, they did make it a game at least. They were down 4-0 after the first period, did score 3 goals in pretty quick succession in the third, but then unfortunately 2 empty netters kind of iced the game for the Leafs, and they went 6-3 on what was the 5-year anniversary of the David Ayers game. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire game and talk about the goals and stuff like that. I think just overall, this is kind of like my thoughts on, a game that even Rod Burnmore says, like, you can't start out like that. You can't start out flat, and they did. They played it was across the league too. I'll give them some credit that, like, a lot of teams across the league played very sloppy hockey. I think even Mark Lazarus said of, the Athletic, of like, if you thought that there wasn't going to be any October hockey where it's just sloppy play, well, we got October hockey, and that's what it was. I mean, you can't give up 3 goals on 3 shots to start a game. You can't be down 4-0 in the first and then, wait until the third period to claw your way back. It was just, like I said, at least they made it the game. At least they made it 4-3. Almost came back. I mean, you got Jacob Slavin goal, which is awesome. Shane Gostisbehere got a goal too. Andrei Svechnikov, but you can't play 40 minutes of okay hockey where the first period is absolutely atrocious, and then you have a middle frame that's okay. You played better, but now you're still in a deep hole where you have to score 4 goals in a period. I mean, they almost did it. I know a lot of Leaf fans were probably sweating bullets during the third period where you see Carolina, it's like 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. Oh my gosh, are they going to do it? But in the end, it didn't happen, and Pontus Holmberg scored 2 goals, but it's just you can't even put that on Pierre Kochetkov. maybe the second goal of the game, but I mean, other than that, like, he got left out to dry. Very bad passes, very bad defensive coverage. Just you could definitely tell that this team was off for the last last couple weeks, and it's just that was very brutal hockey to watch, especially in the first period. And that middle third wasn't great either. But I will give them credit; they didn't quit, they didn't roll over, they did come back into that game, but. It's definitely one of those things where you're like, man, you kind of wish that would, like, what you saw in those 6, 7, 10 minutes in the third, you kind of wish that was right off the rip, first period. I even said it in the preview from Friday's episode where you have to start early and you have to not fall into the trap of what happened last time where you're down 2-0 in the first period in the first 7 minutes. Well, in the end, I guess I was wrong because they were down 4-0 in the first 10. So that didn't really work out too well for my prediction and, what my keys to the game is. But it's just the Hurricanes always kind of struggle for the most part coming out of a break. It's just first game back. Every game against Toronto is weird. I mean, like I said, you're down 4-0. You came back 4-3. It's the anniversary of the David Ayers game. It's just Carolina and the Hurricanes and Maple Leafs games make no sense. They're always just crazy. So I'll just chalk up to one of those weird ones. The first game back out of a break. Hopefully the team's out of a funk or whatever that was, and they get ready for Montreal on Tuesday, of course, and we will preview that for the Tuesday's episode. But it's frustrating. It's a frustrating loss, but like I said, I will give them a lot of credit to where they didn't quit. They did make their way back. You got some really key goals from guys that you really love to see getting goals from. It's just now you turn the page and get ready for Montreal on Tuesday and hopefully get back in the win column because you got 2 games left in February before we hit that March run, and then we got the trade deadline not that far away, where I think it's going to be depth moves, not a big trade, but we'll see. It's just, like I said, it's a game we kind of wish they were a little bit more ready for, but it's, coming off a break. At least they made it a game. At least they didn't roll over and die. But that's just it's just tough when you see, the team kind of fall that far behind, then wait until the third period to claw back. But it's a weird season for the Hurricanes. They're great at home, but now I think it's 12, 14, and 3 on the road. The road has not been nice to the Carolina Hurricanes this season. That's for sure. Usually they're over 500 on both sides of the when it comes to their record. But something about being home, it's just the home cooking's a lot better for them because right now that road record is not very favorable to them. And hopefully it kind of changes because when you get to the playoffs, it's not that much easier. And it's one of those things where we saw 2 playoffs ago, they could not win a game on the road, and that kind of hurt them in the playoffs. And this is where if you're, trying to lock up a 2 seed in the Metro and you want that home ice advantage, well, you're going to need it because if you don't, now you're the 3 seed and you're starting on the road. Not a great place to be in, especially for a team that's kind of struggling on the road to this season. But I think they'll have time to turn it around. It's just, one of those things of growing pains of a transition season where they're trying to figure out what to do next with a bunch of new guys and, with the sickness that they had before going into the break and all that. So, but they'll figure it out. I have a lot of confidence in this team to turn it around on the road, and especially when they play Montreal on Tuesday. But guys, that will wrap up a Monday edition of Live. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, well, why don't you go check out Locked On AHL Podcast, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter, with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On AHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneShoeZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees in both of my bios where you can check out all my articles at the Hockey Writers at thehockeywriters.com. Or if you want to check out my AHL coverage, well, it's theCalderTimes.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes on Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share it with other Caniacs so they become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed this Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone enjoys their Monday, and stay tuned for the Tuesday episode as we will preview the Montreal Canadiens game for your Carolina Hurricanes. Until next time, as always, let's go Canes.